You are listening to KPFT 90.1, Houston.
Welcome to Politics Done Right on KPFT. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Give me a call at 713-526-5738. That is 713-526-KPFT. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. Thank you for thank you for spending yet one more hour with me. As you know, we are in fund drive mode. This is our spring fundraiser, and I hope you guys are going to remember that. And please keep this show on air. And how do you keep this show on air? How do you keep the show that's going to really bring politics to you in the manner that you want it, in a manner that's going to be beneficial? You go ahead and you call us at 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. 713-526-KPFT. Call us and give us a donation. Call us and keep us on air. Call us because this is the show. These are the shows that give you the real news, not modified by the corporatocracy. Well, what do I have in store for you today, guys? Today I will be introducing Jeanene Louden, Coffee Party Director, and Debilyn Molineaux, the newly appointed Coffee Party President. They will come on and discuss what exactly the Coffee Party is. They will tell us what the future holds for the Coffee Party. Most importantly, they will discuss why the tenets of the Coffee Party require a level of civil discourse. This level of civil discourse foments an environment where everyone, irrespective of political association, political party, membership, or otherwise, feel free to engage. Again, folks, this is KPFT FM 90.1 Spring Fund Drive Seasons. KPFT is a Pacifica station that is completely community supported. That brings big benefits. KPFT is not beholden to any corporation, any corporate direction, mantra, or doctrine. As such, we can provide unadulterated truths and unadulterated news, something missing from the mainstream or traditional media. So, folks, please call 713-526-5738 and make a pledge. Let's keep these shows on air. And what do we have for giveaways? I have a few books to give away for pledges of $90. You can get yourself a copy of As I See Fit, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. It provides a real narrative that should be the balance between the corporation, the government, and the individual citizen. It dispels the notions of the corporation being inherently more benevolent than the government. Most importantly, the book presents a logical solution to the economic woes of this country. Implemented over time, the suggested policy changes would ensure that America lives up to the America we all expect it to be. More important information can be found at my website, politicsdoneright.com. So that's for a $90 pledge. For a $120 pledge, you can get the book called Loathing Lincoln, an American tradition from the Civil War to the present. This book explores critics of Abraham Lincoln from the 1850s onward. In addition, Loathing Lincoln examines major themes and personalities in American history, including federal versus state power, the meaning of freedom, and equality. and American imperialism. More important information can be found at John McKee Barr, the professor of history at Lone Star College's website, which is lodenlincoln.com. So, folks, we are ready for
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Now, normally the blog that I read, the first blog that I read is a blog that I have posted on the front page on Daily Kos on Sundays. Today was a bit different because I actually found a post by Paul Krugman, the economist, that really got to me. I mean, it really, really got to me. It showed how dysfunctional our politics is. So let me tell you what I wrote. I titled it, "We Must Ensure Americans Penalize Republicans for Lying and Misinforming." And I know that's a tough title, but it is a fact-based title of what's going on right now. So here it goes. Paul Krugman wrote a very salient piece yesterday titled, "Inventing Failure," that everyone should heed. In the piece, he referred to the House Energy and Commerce Committee release report on Obamacare enrollment. The report was based on the reply to the committee's request to insurance companies on the federal exchanges. The request was for these companies to provide the number of Affordable Care Act, Obamacare enrollees, who have already paid their premiums or their first payments. The committee report concluded that only 67% of enrollees paid their premium as of April 15th. Of course, what the report neglected to state transparently is that because of the surge in signups near the end of the sign-up period, the premiums were not due. In other words, they misled. The committee report states the following. Data provided to the committee by every insurance provider in the healthcare law's federally facilitated marketplace shows that as of April 15, 2014, only 67% of individuals and families that had selected a health plan in the federally facilitated marketplace had paid their first month's premium and therefore completed the enrollment process. Nationwide, only 25% of paid enrollees were ages 18 to 34. The Committee on Oversight and Investigation today invited the leaders of some of the nation's largest insurance providers and their trade groups to testify at a hearing. PPAC Enrollment and Insurance Industry on Wednesday, May 7th, 2014. You know I'm going to be listening to that. You know I'm going to be vlogging about that. But according to Talking Points memo, this is what Talking Points memo says. Nearly 40% of Obamacare enrollees signed up after March 15th, which means their first premium wasn't due until after the committee finished collecting its data. In other words, they don't have the data. The GOP's 67% figure was therefore founded on bad math. It accounted for all enrollees, but it demanded figures to be compiled more than 2 weeks before the actual deadline for many people to make their payments. Republicans held the 67% finding up this week against the Obamacare administration victory lap when the law passed 8 million figures. TPM, which is the Talking Points memo, source concluded that the House survey was specifically designed to undermine the law's recent run of good news. They were clearly trying to get a specific result to rebut any positive news about enrollment. The source said if they were really trying to get full data, they would have waited until early May for the answers. Paul Krugman ends his piece, that is the piece he posted yesterday, with 2 paragraphs that should first give us pause. It should, however, activate us all to unabashedly call out lies and disinformation from every source. Krugman says the following. So Republicans are spreading disinformation about health reform because it works and because they can. There is no sign that they pay any political price when their accusations are proved false. And that observation should scare you. What happens to the Congressional Budget Office if a party that has learned that lying about numbers works takes full control of Congress. What happens if it gains the White House too? Nothing good, that's for sure. The height, and that's, I'm done with his piece. This is the continuation of my blog post. The height of Obamacare lies that is consuming the traditional media is astounding. They continue to give Republicans a platform to lie, misinform, and confuse Americans. Paul Krugman's fear is much deeper than meets the eye. You see, Republicans' intent, so far rather successful, is to first convince Americans that government does not work. They want you to believe there is something intrinsically within the private sector that works better. They would have you believe that profit is a better motivator for good than government of and by the people. In doing so, they want to ensure that the credibility of numbers released by government agencies like the CBO or the BLS should not be trusted. As such, their release of partial truths, misinformation, and outright lies have a degree of plausibility to those predisposed to depend solely on them for information. It is the responsibility then of every thinking American to ensure we never lose faith in government. After all, government is we the people. Loss of faith in government is equivalent to losing faith in ourselves. End of post. Folks, that is why we need stations like KPFT. That is why we need groups like Coffee Party USA. That is why we're asking you to give to KPFT to ensure that you have a source of unbiased information. You have a source that you can trust. You have a source that is really looking out for the middle class. Well, today I'm honored to have Jeanene Louden, who is the director, the national director of Coffee Party USA that we're going to bring online. Jeanene, how art thou doing?
Good evening, Egberto.
Tell me.
I'm doing well.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Now, Jeanene, I don't know if you saw the blog post that I did earlier today, but I mean, it was like I mentioned earlier on. I wanted to go into what I discussed on the Daily Coast post yesterday. But Krugman, what he wrote today just kind of hit me when he actually made it as if it's a foregone conclusion. Lies will win. What say you?
Well, okay, so I believe there's a lot of mischief in the narrative, right? And so what Krugman is pointing to, I think, is that people can play with numbers in order to produce whatever result they wanted to produce. We all know that. I think that's one of the challenges that we at Coffee Party take very seriously, is to try to take the mischief out of the conversation. And so it's less about what party is doing what, and it's more about are we hearing the actual facts? Are we hearing interpretations or nuances? And then once we feel like we're having a factual conversation, can we actually get to the bottom of the mischief and get to what's really happening here? So I think he's pointing to this sort of national sport lately of play with arithmetic, play with emphasis, play with information and the narrative in order to reach your own objective. And I just think that's unfortunate, and it doesn't matter who does it. It just denigrates the American citizen and voter and confuses everybody. And I think everybody has a right to be confused.
I agree wholeheartedly. You have an interesting way of putting this in such a civil Coffee Party way. So let me ask you to do something for me, Jeanene. We are live here in Houston, Galveston, Livingston, Goodrich, and all these towns surrounding Houston, Texas. Not everybody knows much about the Coffee Party, so why don't you introduce the Coffee Party to Texas and tell us all about what are we going to be doing going forward?
Oh my gosh! Well, so hello, Texas. My past husband was born in El Paso.
All right.
So I'm my children from a long line of Texicans. They were an Alamo land grant family. So my kids' family's been there a long, long time. The Coffee Party, just in a nutshell, because I think we'll get a chance to sort of touch on this more ways. The Coffee Party USA is a grassroots, transpartisan network of people, folks like you and me, who share some beliefs. We believe that the conversation needs to be inclusive, civil, fact-based, solution-oriented, and a dialogue, meaning I'm not yelling at you and you're yelling at me. We're actually having a conversation. We believe that government is not bad, but that it is broken, and that in the end, if you and I sit down over a cup of coffee and have a conversation, we're going to find that we are more alike than different, and that there are solutions to the issues that this republic's democracy faces today. So we do things ourselves. We do things with our membership. We have followers and supporters. We collaborate with other organizations. And the whole notion is that we are moving toward the America we seek, which is a place where votes matter more than campaign contributions, and the elected represent their electors, not their funders.
I like the way you said that. Now, why don't you tell us, well, beforehand, I need to do a little break and remind folks that we are in fundraising mode. So people, please give us a call, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. That 5738 also is KPFT, so it's 713-526-KPFT. We have quite a bit of offers for you, so please give us a call, and remember that what you're doing is getting information like you're getting from Jeanene Louden, the director of Coffee Party USA, telling us the different things that you're not going to hear on regular news media or anything of that sort. Did you know all the things that Coffee Party or groups like the Coffee Party is doing, groups like Move to Amend's doing? Well, you can come here and you can listen to it here. Real politics done right. Jeanene, why don't you tell us a little bit about how the genesis of the Coffee Party? How did we get started?
Well, we were sort of born of the cauldron of the political vitriol of 2010. Our founder, Annabelle Park, put up a Facebook post and followed it with a video that we all affectionately call the Snowy video, where she basically says that the mainstream media, I think she used that term, but media in general, was treating the histrionics of politics of that summer. The security guards having to be called into town hall meetings, all of that. They were representing that as, quote unquote, the American way. And she said, I don't think so. I don't believe that. I believe that real Americans can have a conversation, and I think that we need to look at solving our political problems a different way. Well, I think the country is pretty ripe for that notion at the time, because she does Facebook posts, and a few weeks later, she's got 10,000, 50,000. We now have 500,000 people who, quote unquote, like our Facebook page, join the Coffee Party movement. And so it was born of probably some frustration, but also a sense of a misidentity, that most Americans didn't like being represented that way, and so that's how it started, and then it's gone through several iterations for sure in terms of how do we have, how do you run a grassroots movement, how do you fund a grassroots movement, what are the roles of all the players, which is like us learning to try to recreate the kind of country we want to see, but doing it on the smaller scale. So now, at this point, we're operated, so to speak. Everybody knows any big organization. An organization needs someone at the steering wheel, right, in the driver's seat. So we have an elected board of directors. The directors are elected by our members, and we, each serve several terms or a certain number of years in a term. But I think the point is that we're trying to invent the democracy we seek. And as a matter of fact, I guess that's a segue I didn't really plan, but there's a few things we're up to right now. And one of them is we're about to announce our election cycle. So, 3 directors are going to come up for election. And we'll be posting about the process, what it takes to be a member of the board of directors. And, in a nutshell, you have to be 18. You have to have signed the civility pledge. You have to be a member. And then there's, details about telling people who you are and being vetted by our board development committee, and then being promoted through our social media, and then people will actually vote, and the new members will be seated about August 1st. So that's actually one of the things we're up to, and I'd love to have people come to www.coffeepartyusa.com, check out the Coffee Party, see if it's something you'd like to be involved in. Whether you would like to run for office or not, you still have to be a member if you're going to vote. And so it'd be a lot of fun to have a bunch more folks from Texas join us, because I hear you guys know how to get things done down there. I think down there because I'm in Oregon.
We know how to get things done in Texas, but somehow we have yet to be able to get rid of some of the people we need to get rid of to get the state moving forward for what I like to call the middle class. Folks, you're listening to KPFT 90.1 FM in Houston, 89.5 Galveston, 89.7 Huntsville, Goodrich, Livingston, 90.3. Folks, we are in fundraising mode in order to keep these good programs on, programs that are going to bring you real news going forward. Please remember to give us a call at 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. We have several gifts for you. The person who is taking the calls can give you a plethora of gifts that we have. However, for this show right now, we are giving away 2 books. For a $90 pledge, you can get the book written by yours truly, Egberto Willies of Politics Done Right, called As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. We only have 10 copies of those that are going to be going out, so make your pledge now. $90 pledge gives you a copy, and of course, the pleasure of knowing that you are actually supporting community radio that's going to give you unbiased information, not generated by our plutocracy, not generated by the corporatocracy. What is this book about? This book provides a real narrative that should be given between the balance between the corporation, the government, and individual citizens. It's an easy read, and for those people who think they don't like politics, or they don't want to get involved, or they're scared to get involved, it actually gives you all that you need to know to get involved in politics and take control of your politics to ensure that, yes, we, the middle class, are the real power in this country. We are the ones that are going to make a difference. And the second book that we have, for a $120 pledge, we only have 4 of those books left. That is the award-winning new book from LSU Press entitled Loudon Lincoln, An American Tradition from the Civil War to the Present, which explores the critics of Abraham Lincoln from the 1850s onward. I don't know if you've been realizing, but Abraham Lincoln has been taking a beating mostly from the right these days. So the professor told me, Dr. Barr told me, I had to write this book because the narrative that was going out there, that the false narrative had to be addressed. And that's what he did with this book. In fact, in a couple of weeks, Dr. Barr will be a guest on the show. We'll have a couple of other professors as well, and we'll be discussing that in detail. Now, Jeanene, I think based on how you said the coffee party started, it's amazing because it was completely and entirely organic, which means the people, one young lady, Annabelle Park, was frustrated with what she saw going on in the country, specifically how The narrative was changed, specifically things that the Tea Party is doing. All these issues she saw. And she just made a video, threw it up on Facebook. And organically, people having that same feeling, believing that something needed to change, but not knowing exactly what needed to be changed, gravitated towards her message, which was a good message. All organic, won't you say?
Oh, it's absolutely organic. I think Annabelle was shocked, and the rest of us were very pleased that she'd done it. I would say, in addition to the notion that she was frustrated, I think she was also very insightful. So, she saw that the narrative that was being promoted in the media, that people wanted to, do pitchforks and torches as a solution to our political problems, basically, was not true. Most people didn't want to do that. And I realize people want to use terms like Tea Party when we're talking about us, but I don't have a strong need to do that, because I think there are a lot of folks in the Tea Party who didn't think that was the right thing to do. It's just, again, there was so much beating of drums, and it was an easy story. It was visual. I mean, if you go to, Videography 101 and you want to capture somebody's attention, you have people throwing things at each other and being rude. I mean, it explains half of reality TV, And so I think her insight was really that if you give the people a chance to intervene or to, the way they want to make a difference, that actually wasn't the way. It was not representative of you and me and most of America.
That is so true. I tell you what, there are two coffee parties that have been actually associated with in town here, both in the Woodlands and in Austin, two very strong coffee party groups that are still active. I think the Austin one's changed its names since, but the movement continues, and the thoughts that she had continues. I shouldn't just say the thoughts that she had, but the thoughts all in the movement had. Because, like we said, it was something that was very organic in the way it was formed. It was people having the same feeling, and it happened to be that her particular video went viral and sort of categorized folks to this particular movement. And that is what I think that is what we can look at and say, well, we know that if you present people with an opportunity, if you present people with a reason to do something, if they feel that it's going to be positive, they are absolutely willing to engage, which is one of the biggest problems we are currently having in our body politic. Allowing people or giving people that platform to engage. So, Jeanene, let me give a quick fundraising call, and then I'm going to ask you to think about the next topic I want to talk about is, how is Coffee Party going to work on getting people to engage? Folks, you are listening to KPFT FM, Houston 90.1, Galveston 89.5, Huntsville 89.7, Goodrich, Livingston 90.3. We are in fundraising mode, folks. This is community radio. We depend on you for your support. We humbly ask you to give to the station. All of us on this station, all the hosts of the different shows, whether it be Think Wing Radio or any of the other shows, they are simply here on a volunteer basis because it's a passion that they have. It's a passion we have. In my case, it's a passion for politics. It's a passion for the expectation that we're going to wake up the middle class to ensure that we really take back this country. I'm not talking about the take back the country that you hear from the Tea Party or anything like that. I'm talking about really, really taking back the country from the plutocracy. Now, folks, give us a call, 713-526-5738. We have several gifts, and I've already mentioned, as I see it, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom, for a $90 pledge, and Louden Lincoln for $120 pledge. It's both of them are great reads. Both of them will give you a notion of history, one more contemporary, one otherwise. And I think it's well worth the read. And these are going to be concepts that we're going to be talking about throughout this station, throughout the year. So again, folks, that number is 713-526-5738. Please open those pocketbooks and help this community station, the last real progressive community station in Houston. Now, Jeanene, where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here? Well, I think I already told you that we're looking for board elections, but there's the biggest thing that's happening, like on the event horizon that's right in front of my nose right now, is that we are in the process of gathering our teams of volunteers that'll take us through this election period into the new year. And our teams are going to be doing everything from tidying up our web presence to organizing organizers to we're creating a group called Coffee Party Ambassadors, who are our liaisons, like two other groups like that are like-minded. We're starting a movie night. We're restarting our book clubs. There's the amount of things that we can do. We've got this a bunch of great ideas and a bunch of actions going on, but it really depends on the volunteers that we're able to bring into the fold, so to speak. And so we're having volunteer calls, people who want to inquire about volunteering, every 2 weeks these days as we ramp up. The next call is May 15th, and if you're interested in being on that call, you can go to www.coffeepartyusa.com/volunteer, and we'll see that you've said you're interested. You can also, if you're like me and sometimes do things in the middle of the night and you're jammies, you can also listen to a recording of the very first volunteer call of this series. And that one's on Blog Talk Radio, blogtalkradio.com/CoffeePartyUSA. And then you just scan for the episode called Coffee Party Volunteer Opportunity Call. And you'll just get to listen in as though you were on that call and hear the kind of things we're doing, the kind of talents that we can use. And frankly, we can use just about any talent. You've got a talent, we'll find a way to have you fulfill your ambitions with it. It'll be great. And then, of course, it's interesting listening to you talk about fundraising and what it is to be grassroots, fully volunteer organization, because that's exactly what we are too. And so we're always looking for members, we're always looking for donors, and we're always looking for fundraising opportunities that are kind of win-win. And so, I guess some fundraising is in our future, and fundraising kind of volunteers would be really appreciated. Our efforts, though, like once you're a volunteer and once you're in the trenches or in the streets, whatever, our focus is determined by our membership. And the 3 core values of Coffee Party USA have been determined by the membership to be campaign finance reform, tax code reform, and Wall Street reform. We see these as pivotal issues in terms of what it's going to take to sort of break through the inertia of the dysfunctional status quo that's going on in our Congress and in our state houses across America. But this year, our membership agreed that campaign finance reform was like a linchpin issue. And so we're collaborating with other groups on finding ways to help take money out of politics. We're trying to promote petitions. We're promoting the views that try to expose candidates who have campaign finance reform in their sites. So everything that the flavor of the year is getting money out of politics to free the elected from that tyranny of money in politics.
Absolutely. Now, Jeanene, just based on the tenets of Coffee Party, I think it may be a good time for you to explain to, you mentioned the tenet of getting money out of politics. Now tell me, what do you think then these last 2 big Supreme Court rulings have to do with Coffee Party and how we are going to fight that? Specifically, Well, we all know about Citizens United. And secondly, what just passed, the McCutcheon ruling.
Oh, my gosh. Well, of course, part of the angst that Annabelle Park was experiencing when she made her original Facebook post and her snowy video was about the Citizens United decision. I think the court was naive in both that decision and the McCutcheon decision, thinking that money does not affect. Money as speech is saying, it's almost like saying in truth, it's like the guy who can scream the loudest really doesn't have any impact on what's going on in the room. And I think that these are horrific decisions on the part of our Supreme Court. I think we're going to have to work long and hard to negate the effects of these rulings. I think we're trying to be preemptive as a community. Coffee Party and others are trying to be preemptive in other issues that are still under the court's consideration. But I think it just points to the fact that this whole idea of there's a naivete about money in politics that is detrimental to the country. We have a lot of data. We have a lot of information about the cycle of corruption, how people aren't being paid off. It's like in the old days, we had these visions of, the guy with his money wrapped up in tinfoil and in his freezer because somebody gave him cash. And in exchange for the cash, he expected certain things to be done. It's much more subtle now. Legal. It's evolved to this. We didn't mean to have this happen, I don't believe. Where the sense of being beholden to the people who fund your campaigns, given the millions of dollars it takes to run, it's naive to say that there is no sense of obligation or that it's not impacting what people do. And then there's even more obvious maladies in the system. I mean, Justice Roberts said in the McCutcheon decision, they could only look at quid pro quo, that old mobster kind of bribery. They weren't going to look at the effect of the money. They were only going to look at was it or was it not an implied contract,
He had to do that, though. I mean, he in order to somehow give him some semblance of honesty, that is the type of call he had to make. Otherwise, it made no sense. Back in I guess a couple months ago, I wrote, or probably 3 months ago, I wrote about the Powell memo, where you were a bit more generous than I would be when you mentioned and when you said that this was something that you thought that they were naive. I think it's much more sinister than naive. I think it's more planned. But what I want to do now, Jeanene, is bring in our president of Coffee Party is here with us now. And this is Debilyn Molineaux. Debilyn, welcome to the show. Welcome to Politics Done Right on KPFT.
Well, hi, Egberto. Hi, Jeanene. Good to be with you guys tonight.
Now, Debilyn, tell me, Jeanene was telling us about some of the projects that we're going to be doing. So what I want to just ask you concisely, where is the Coffee Party going forward now that you are the president?
So, well, thanks for that softball kind of question there, Egberto. Well, the first thing that I think we need to talk about with Coffee Party is giving people a sense of empowerment and things to do so that, beyond getting their email from Coffee Party as well as they do from other groups, that there's actually some actions that we can take to start building relationships with each other. And then through those relationships, we can take collective action. So some of the first things that we're going to do starting in June, we have a Coffee Party movie night where we're going to screen a documentary called This American Journey. And after, on the night of the movie, which I think is June 14th, and I'll make sure I get that correct on the website pretty soon, we're actually going to interview the filmmakers, and we want people who've watched the movie and gathered their friends and family together to watch the movie with them to call in and ask the filmmakers questions about the movie. And this movie is a very transpartisan movie about two guys who drive across country and start talking to Americans about what they think of our country. So it's an awesome movie. I really like the way that it broke down a lot of labels and barriers and boxes that we put people in. We're also going to be starting a book club where we're going to pick the book. We're open to suggestions right now if people have things they want to recommend. I just got one today that's by Ralph Nader, talking about the taking back our country from the corporate state.
Wow.
So I'm going to probably throw that one in the ring. But this will be in July. So in July we'll have a book club meeting where we get, again, people gather together with friends and family, try and bring some diversity of opinion in the room, and having read the book, go through and work on some of the book club questions that we're going to put out there for people. And then starting in August, we're actually going to advance to having dialogue with each other through a living room conversations format. So it'll be coffee party living room conversations where the members and supporters of Coffee Party get to pick their topic of what they want to talk about, and then invite guests again over to their home, go through a 5-question process so everybody in the room answers the same 5 questions, and we actually get to learn about each other and the diversity of opinion, and look for common ground to see if there are things we want to work on together and take action, so that the Coffee Party will then have that basis of information of what we did find that we had in common, so we can look for collective action.
Now, ultimately, when we lay that type of platform, if you will, that type of a base, what do you think? Or I hate to use what do you think, because I like to be a bit more positive than just thinking. What is the next step out of, after we foment not an agreement, but a trust among people that may or may not think differently? What can be accomplished once that base level of trust is attained?
Well, it's going to be really powerful if we come up and we find out that in the area of campaign finance reform, everybody agrees that transparency is like the first thing we need to do. Make sure that there's no dark money left. All the 501c4s that are doing political contributions have to disclose them. So it may be that we find out, that the Disclose Act is something we take action on. And so then we start writing our representatives, and we start visiting them in their offices, both local and in Washington, and we start telling people we're from Coffee Party. We have this diversity of opinion, or this diversity of political beliefs in the room, and we all believe that this is the next step we need to take on campaign finance reform. And we start, building our case and making sure we're heard.
I think that is exactly what I really wanted to hear, and that is that we are actually going to engage in body politic, not only from the people's perspective, but for the people who purport to be our actual leaders, that we are finally going to engage them from, directly from the base. Don't you think?
I think so. And think of the power of the message. If a congressman or a senator is getting emails from people that they know are politically conservative and people that they know are politically liberal, and they're saying the same thing, then it becomes a matter of public, becomes a matter of public record if you're contacting the office, and it's going to stand out. It's going to stand out that people want the same thing from across the political spectrum, and help give them the cover that they need to, not necessarily act in their funders' interest, if you will, because they may win the funding vote, but they also have to win the voters' vote, and or the funding campaign, and they also have to win the voting campaign. So that is the power of the people, is the voting campaign, where the power that funders have right now is the money. So it's a game that we can play at the moment.
It is amazing. I don't know if you remember during the Occupy days. I know definitely Jeanene remember those days. You remember those days, Jeanene, when the Occupy movement was strong and so many of us were engaged in the Occupy movement. And one of the biggest fears, and I remember this distinctly because in one of the Occupy groups that we had here in the Houston area, we had what I'd call an infiltration from the Tea Party. Mm-hmm. And unlike what one would believe that that infiltration would result in some sort of a fight or some sort of a, arguments or whatever. And what was instructive is that once we went through, I think we did this one at this particular exercise, if I'm not mistaken, was at Occupy Kingwood. What occurred is as we started enumerating all the grievances that we had, it was amazing. Sans certain social issues, how close the average American citizens are, whether they call themselves conservative like many people or as liberal as I am like other folks, how much in common the core issues people really agreed on.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know anybody that doesn't want an effective government. I think an effective government is something that everybody could get behind. And that is, one of the things the Coffee Party stands for is we don't want to hate government. We just want a government that's effective and that actually represents us.
I hoped you had heard the blog post that I read in the beginning, because that was don't you think, Jeanene, that was a basic, in a lot of ways, the basic tenet as well as far as what Paul Krugman was actually saying. Whereas, what we have a sect doing right now is trying to keep that distrust in government by, in effect, lying about some of the accomplishments of government, and by doing so, you have the people lose faith in the government. I ended the post saying, folks, if you are losing faith in government, what you're really saying is you're losing faith in yourselves. Yes. Because whose government but we the people?
That's absolutely true. And we need to, remind the funders of that as well. It's not government of by and for the funders, to quote Larry Lessig, but it is government of by and for the people. Absolutely.
I understand as well that maybe you'll be working with organizations or maybe attempting to work with groups like Move to Amend and others?
Well, we're going to be talking about that, I think, this coming week. But I know that, through collaboration with, there's so many organizations right now that are good government organizations out there. And I would really invite anybody who's listening to call us or email us at info@coffeepartyusa.com to give us suggestions as to organizations we might partner with. Because if we can truly build a collaborative model for everybody to start working together, be it conservative, be it liberal, be it independent, I don't really care. If we are working towards the same thing, we are so much stronger together.
Great. I want to bring Jeanene back into discussion. And Jeanene, talk a little bit about how groups like Coffee Party really need to be financed. But before I ask how groups like Coffee Party needs to be financed, I have to do financing for KPFT. So here we go. Folks, remember, you get good quality, truth-based, non-corporate-based information when you support a community radio that's going to give you not information filtered by the plutocracy, not by the information filtered by the oligarchy. And remember, I'm not just saying these words. A few professors have finally come to the conclusion that America is no longer a pure democracy, but an oligarchy. So when I talk about us having to take the country back, I mean it in that exact phrase. We've got to take the country back from the oligarchy, from the plutocracy. And how are we going to do that? Not through the corporate media, but through media like KPFT FM 90.1. So, folks, please give us a call at 713-526-5738. That's 713-526-5738, 713-526-KPFT. And give us a donation. We have several goodies to give you for those who give donations of certain levels. And by the way, we accept any level, but for $90, we are giving you As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. That's the book written by yours truly, which is the narrative that should be the balance between the corporation, the government, and the individual citizens. It dispels the notion of the corporation being inherently more benevolent than the government, and so on and so forth. Go to the website to take a look at it. But that's a $90 pledge. We only have 10 copies in stock for the pledge. And, of course, there's Dr. Barr's Loudon Lincoln, an American tradition from the Civil War to the present. Very good book for a $120 pledge. We only have 4 copies left. So, folks, give us a call. The number is 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Okay, Jeanene, come on in.
So it's ironic you're talking about financing. I think I mentioned that earlier because I always tell people that Citizens United has not benefited us. And so, no sugar daddies over here at Coffee Party USA. We are financed by members, donors, and the occasional fundraising activity. And so we have sustaining members. You can give $5 a month. You can give $50 a month. We have donors who come in for special projects and make donations that are earmarked for those projects. So, as you know, being a grassroots organization, you've got overhead, you've got infrastructure, and even amazing people donate their time. We're not paying salaries. We have to occasionally pay a consultant, but we're definitely out here supporting a website, Blog Talk Radio, Facebook effort, you name it, with donations, and we appreciate any and all. Hey, so I want to point out another thing. You've given away a book about Lincoln. This is a sidebar, but did you know that Lincoln was a third-party candidate?
Yes, yes, I did.
And so I really think that it's kind of cute that it's now fashionable to sort of do Lincoln bashing, because I think people are actually ready for a third-party candidate if things don't change. And so, of course, it'd be very important to discredit the fact that someone could actually be a third-party candidate and win. So I think it's great that you're giving out that book.
Excellent.
One of the biggest things we do with our money is a project we call Be the Media. And so we're all over, as I think it's you, Egbert, who says we're all over the intertube and other kinds of social media. And one of the things we do is not just promote ourselves or our perspective, but we promote other organizations. And so right now, Root Strikers is promoting their May 1, which is a fundraiser to create a super PAC to support candidates who want to get money out of politics. So we're promoting that. We're always promoting everything that Move to Amend does. We're always supporting everything that Represent Us does. There's a whole list of organizations. I'm going to be at the United We Stand Festival this weekend in Los Angeles at Poly Pavilion. So I think a big part of what shows like yours need to do and organizations like ours is to let people know that they're not alone, that there's lots of people out there who feel the way they feel. And there are lots of ways to reach out and touch other people and find the community where you can find what you seek. In our case, stability and reason. We hope those are the folks looking for us. So,
well, look, Jeanene.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And this is actually going to be the close of this part of our show as I continue to try to raise some funds for KPFT. So thank you very much for being on the call, Jeanene. And I'm pretty sure that all the folks here in Houston loved what they heard about Coffee Party. And we are going to be, as I think I always hear you say, Coffee Party on.
Coffee Party on.
Thank you very much, Jeanene. Folks, let me tell you, we haven't met our quota for the hour, so I am asking you to please give us a call at 713-526-5738. We try to keep the good programming online for you, and unless we hear from you, we're not able to pay the good old bills that we have. We have a $1.5 million plus bill that we must pay to keep this station on air. So again, folks, please give us a call, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. So what do you get for an investment in community radio? What you get is, it's pretty simple, folks. You actually get to get the types of information that you're not going to get on ABC, CBS, NBC, because you know what? These particular stations are run by what I call the corporatocracy, by corporate America. So a lot of the news that you get is not valid. It's not valid news. So let me tell you, folks, if you really want to hear information, if you really want to get information, if you want information that isn't biased, please donate to the station. 713-526-5738. Remember how Obamacare came about? Remember the difficulty in getting real information out? Whose fault was that? Who spent millions of dollars to misinform America? Who allowed that misinformation to make it online? Who did that? Was it just the Republicans? No, it was not. It was a media, a corporate media, that gave the things that the Republicans spoke about, the false information that they spoke about, the thing that allowed 1 million Texans to be without insurance, to be played on regular news programs. Those lies that were played on these news stations allowed a Rick Perry to, in effect, keep most of our Texans, or a lot of our Texans, 1 million of our Texans, without health insurance. How did that happen? You turned on Channel 13, Channel 4, or all the other local stations. Obamacare, the stories you heard about it. All the false stories that you heard on Obamacare. All these false stories turned out to be, in effect, fallacies. They were false information by the media. So a donation to KPFT ensures that you're going to have a source that you can trust, a source that you know is not going to be giving you the type of information that is tainted, the type of information that ensures an insurance agencies or an insurance industrial complex that will keep your money, an insurance complex that forces the media to lie in order to maintain the status quo. That is what a KPFT does for the area. That's what a community radio can do for you. That is why we need community radio. That is why we must have community radio. Community radio is here to provide the types of information that you are going to get nowhere else. So, folks, please give us a call, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Give us a call. Give us a donation, please. Go ahead and keep us on air. It is something that we need. It is something that, you know what, it also makes you feel good to know that you are a part of that which will be given valid information for a change. You listen to the regular stations, folks, you're not necessarily getting the right information. So, folks, give us a call, 713-526-5738. Bob, you want to talk about our guest here?
Hi, folks. This is Bob Gartner, and I'm standing by to take a few more calls real quick toward the end of Egberto's show. We've got 1 or 2 minutes left, and I just would like to thank Bill and Tammy out in Kingwood for calling in tonight and supporting Egberto's new show. This is about your 4th one, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And I have really been enjoying it. I just want you to know that. So please call 713-526-5738. Thank you, Egberto.
Thank you, folks. So, folks, we have 2 more minutes left. 713-526-5738. This is a station worth giving to. What is it worth to you? 713-526-5738. Yes, folks, it's sort of a hard sell, but you know what? We think it's worth it. We're all volunteers here. We want to stay on air. We want to ensure that we can provide you that information that, you know what, it's going to make a difference. 713-526-5738. Thank you very much, folks. This has been a wonderful night, and for those who've given, thank you so kindly, and we'll talk to you next week again when we'll be having new guests and asking again to support the station.
Thank you very much for listening to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. You can personally reach me by sending an email to egberto@politicsdoneright.com.